Good morning, everyone. This is your Tuesday English lesson, and we are going to plan our narrative today, our story all about Howard Carter entering Tutankhamun's tomb. So, the first thing I would like you to do is go to a double page in your workbook, or I am going to set this as a PDF onto the task. So, if you have got the ability to print this, you can print it. If not, no worries at all. What I need you to do is open to a double page spread, and I want you to draw this image that you can see on your screen in the middle of your two-page spread. I don't want it to fill the whole 2 pages because you're going to do lots of writing around it, but I do want it around going through the middle of your page, quite big in the middle, okay? You're going to have lots of room to do your writing around it, so not too big that you've got nothing to write about. So that's what you are going to do. You've got a long rectangle here, quite a large section here, which is the room, a smaller square rectangle here, a rectangle shape coming off here, and then a smaller rectangle coming down. And you're going to find out what these are in the next slide. So, this is a bird's eye view of Tutankhamun's tomb. We are going to plan our journey through the tomb. So what I need you to do once you've done your rectangles and you've drawn it in your books, I want you to label each section and what that name is. So here, this bottom rectangle, we have the passageway. So this is the staircase that Howard Carter will go down. So it's a descending staircase into the ground. He goes and travels down this into the antechamber. And this is where the big stone wall door is that he has to chisel and hammer his way through to enter into this larger room here. This is the antechamber. So this is where Tutankhamun kept his belongings. He will have his chest, he will have his clothes, his accessories, his chariot, his tables, his statues, so his belongings that he really loved and treasured. Here in the annex are some more of his belongings that aren't as treasured, so it might be some chairs and tables, maybe a dressing table, so something that's usually wooden that isn't as valuable, but still he wanted to keep with him in his tomb. Here we have the burial chamber, which is the most important part. So you need to remember to label it right next to this larger rectangle here. This is the burial chamber where right in the middle is Tutankhamun. So he had his sarcophagus, which took up most of the room. It was really, really large, a stone sarcophagus, which is etched in hieroglyphics, all handmade. And then inside that, there was his coffin. His golden coffin, solid gold, over 200 kilograms worth of gold. And then inside that was Tutankhamun as a mummy wearing his death mask. So that's going to be in the burial chamber. And then the treasury is all of Tutankhamun's prized possessions. So this means it was on this side of the burial chamber because it was really hard to get to because the sarcophagus was so big it took up most of the room, which is why it's on this far end here, because he didn't want anyone to go past the sarcophagus and try and steal any of his treasures when he was dead. So in here he would have his canopic jars, which held most of his organs. He would have his prized jewels, so maybe his throne, his crown. It would have his shaptis, which are his servant dolls that he wished to take with him to the afterlife. So the first thing I need you to do is label all these different parts of a bird's eye view of the tomb. Next, this looks a little bit funny, but what I have done is I have tracked the journey of Howard Carter. He starts here on the outside, he goes down the tomb, and where I've stopped these lines is where I think Howard Carter would stop in his tracks to look at something. He's seen something in this bit. So I'm going to stop my line here, and then I'm imagining that he is seeing some hieroglyphics on the wall. And I'm going to stop my line there again, and he's looking at some pictures of some gods on this wall. He stops at the line because he's got to chisel his way through into the antechamber. And then you can see he darts around the antechamber and the annex as he sees lots of things around the room. So I'm going to imagine that my chariot is here. I'm going to imagine that he's got a big chest or a big kind of wardrobe with all his clothes over here. Maybe in the middle there's lots of spider webs or cobwebs that he has to dart his way through. Over here there could be chairs and tables, could be some statues of some cats like we saw in our sources of evidence PowerPoint. In the annex there could be some rotting chairs that I've seen him stop at, and then he darts all the way through to this main wall here. So this one is not a stone wall, but just like a wooden door that he has to heave his way through. It is guarded, in my imagination, by two statues. So he goes straight in, and as you can see, he's darting around the burial chamber because there's lots to see. There's the sarcophagus that then he takes off to see the coffin and the death mask inside. You can see then he darts into the treasury, and that's the end of my route. I want you to use in a coloured pencil or a pen or something that you have to hand. I want you to do your own Howard Carter route through your drawing, just like mine. Yours could be a different direction. He could come over here first, then go to the burial chamber. He could then loop back to the annex. So I want you to do your own route that you think Howard Carter would do through this bird's eye view of the tomb. The next thing I want you to do is where he has stopped, I want you to write some arrows, because when you have wrote where he has stopped, you've imagined he stopped to look at something. So you need to draw some arrows coming off that you're ready to write from to tell me what he has stopped to look at. Yours should look like mine. So now I've done lots of writing around the edge of what I imagine Howard Carter to have seen when he stops. So for example, right at the beginning here, he stops to look at the wall. So I've said he's seen etched hieroglyphs carved into the stone. So it's not a big sentence, it's more like a bullet point. I'm not writing it specifically, I'm just telling my audience and writing it in my plan to remind myself when I come to writing it what he sees as he stops. And here in my passageway, he's seeing the crumbling steps with the dust flying into his eyes. So maybe that's a reason that he has to stop, because he has to wipe his eyes. We've got all of my antechamber arrows that you can pause the video to read and remind yourself what he can see. We've got the annex where he's got termite-ridden rotten chairs and tables, because remember, if they're in the annex, they're probably not as worth money and they're probably made out of wood. So if it's been there for thousands of years, it's probably rotting, it might have gone mouldy, there might have been bugs in it. Remember, we are in the desert, so maybe there's some snakes down there and some spiders and creepy crawlies. Now over here we've got the golden goblets, which are like the drink chest that he could have drank out of. I've got lots of ideas where he stopped in the burial chamber. So he's got the stone sarcophagus, he's got the hieroglyphic painted long coffin, the two-headed dog figure guarding the treasury, I might put over here, or you could put it over here, something guarding, or even here, completely up to you, what you imagine his tomb to look like as you walked in. We've got some canopic jars here and some Shabti dolls where I've said that they're ready to follow their master into the afterlife, because the Shabtis were small dolls moulded on the servants of Tutankhamun at the time. So he believed that if he had dolls of his servants, they would go with him to the afterlife. And the canopic jars he wanted to keep a hold of because he would need his organs in the afterlife as well. So they're one of his prized possessions. So what I want you to do now on your plan, you can use a couple of mine, but I would like you to think of your own, of what he could see and where he could see it. So you can pause the video here whilst you write it, but remember you've still got some more bits to write, so do not fill your 2 double pages just yet. So it could be small bullet points of what he could see, or you could give me a little bit more detail. So now on this slide, I've thought back to what my success criteria is, which is figurative language. I want some preposition. I want some adverbs of manner, of how he's done stuff. I want some personification. I want some relative clauses. So I've thought of that and I've gone through, and in a different colour I have added some more detail. So the Shabtis lined up like the army, ready to receive instruction from their commander. Now that one is figurative language of personification, and it's also a simile. Shabtis aren't human, so they can't be physically lined up like an army because they're not human. And obviously I've used the word like, so that is my simile. Ready to receive instruction, well, they can't hear anything, so that's my personification. I've talked about the different contrasting colours using some high-level vocabulary. I've got my chairs and tables that are slouching into nothingness. Again, some personification. They can't slouch, they're not human. But I've used that to give a great image to my reader. And here I've got the chariot that's boasting proudly, so it's really tall, really big, and it's feeling proud of itself. Again, some personification, but also an adverb of manner. I've got dancing across the stone. I've got loads of things that are going to high level up my work, so when I can write in my paragraphs over the next couple of days, I can look back at this page and I'm going to know what I can use. So yours should be filled with ideas, with what he can see, and up-level that language. Give me a few sentences. You could use personification, you could use similes, you could use adverbs. You could tell me where. So where is the treasure chest with the golden goblets? You could say it's next to the chariot, it's behind or in front of the annex. You could see the wardrobe, which is to the right of the golden goblets. Give me some prepositional phrases. The canopic jars are on top of a wooden feature. The Shabtis, where are they? So give me that prepositional phrase. So I have given you things to include. Preposition. So just like I've just said, where are they in your plan? I want to really be able to close my eyes, and if you gave me your plan, if you read it to me, I could picture where everything is in your tomb. You've got some descriptional language, so you could use some expanded noun phrases about to add the adjectives to describe your things, to describe your nouns. Some adverbs about what they're doing, so if he's slowly opening, if he's touching the hieroglyphs gently. We've got the 5 senses of what he could see, smell, taste, touch, and hear. So what could he do in that one? He could smell the decaying mummy. He could hear the wind whistling through the tomb. He could taste the sand on his lips, maybe, as he's crumbling down. He could touch the encarved hieroglyphs of the wall and what he can see. So I want that on your plan as well as we go through all the rooms. Personification of your objects, which I've done in orange in the slide before. Some alliterational language as well. He could see the weeping, winding, willowing chariot that's in the corner. And then obviously the similes of objects he sees. They were stood like, it was as big as, it was as colourful as. Yeah, so you're giving me lots of similes to make the reader really be able to imagine what the tomb looks like. And this is going to come in really handy when we are writing our paragraphs over the coming weeks and days. So what I want you to do is fill all that in. I want your double page spread to be jam-packed with ideas. You can even go into a new page if you've still got lots to think about and lots to write about. You can even Google some inspiration. So what would you find in the tomb or in the cave, in the sarcophagus? What would it look like? You can Google what the canopic jars looks like if you can't picture them, if you don't know what they are. Because we haven't really touched on it like we would in school. You would see pictures around the classroom, and I know this is where it goes a little bit tricky when we're going to do our online learning, so I'm relying on you that if you don't know what something means, or if you're a little bit struggling for ideas, that you can hop onto Google or ask an adult and they will help you. Or you can go into Google, find the word, or think about Googling what would I find in an Egyptian antechamber, and then you'll come up with plenty of ideas and images to help you. So fill your page with ideas, send them over to us, and I can't wait to see them. This will really help you when you're writing your paragraphs over the next coming weeks, so you need to make sure it is filled with ideas. Enjoy!